This is your Olympic hero and former WWE champion, Kurt Angle. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my guys, Clint and Noah. When it comes to covering sports, there is no one better. And believe me, that's true. It's damn true.
Gentlemen, you are the top 1%.
The elite. Best of the best.
You are now listening to the Elite Sports Podcast, brought to you by Vermeil Wines and powered by GASN Sports, the pinnacle of hard-hitting sports talk, featuring weekly expert analysis and top-notch interviews. And now, please welcome your hosts, Noah Groniger and Clint Schweitzer.
It may be a bye week for the 8-1 Kansas City Chiefs, but here on the Elite Sports Podcast, we are powering through as we head into the fall and winter months here on the Elite Sports Podcast. We thank you guys for sticking with us through COVID-19. We are still here powering along, and I'll tell you what, Noah, as I've said in recent weeks, I've become so frustrated with how this football season's gone. Yes, I'm excited games are being played. I'm glad it's going off and that we're trying to do this, but man, college football has really been a bummer. 4 out of the 7 SEC games have been canceled for this weekend. They're going to try to get some of them replayed, December 19th, when the SEC championship game is happening. I doubt some of these games they even mess with. We're going to get into that and so much more with our guest this week, NFL.com's Jeffri Chadiha. We're going to talk some NFL, talk some college. He's a Michigan man, so we're going to be asking about Jim Harbaugh, the Big Ten, getting started late. Maybe, Noah, like you said before we started, the Big Ten's finally going to get to play some catch-up as the SEC is now on the shelf.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe that this is happening in the SEC. They were the ones out there in front saying, we're going to play. And they have, and it's been great. And I thought I was going to have to eat my words. It's looking like we're getting a lot of these games in. There's been some games under the radar that have been canceled that nobody's really paid attention to. But now this is really hitting the SEC heavy and hard. And, man, I hate to see it. It's going to be tough to try and find some good games to watch this weekend with 4 SEC games on the shelf. And, yeah, like I said before we started, the Big Ten, the Pac-12, they're late to the game, but they're going to get to catch up with pretty much the SEC on a bye week.
Well, it's a killer for us because, we cover the Missouri Tigers on a weekly basis. We were heading to Columbia from Missouri and Georgia, and that door was slammed as that game is canceled. Along with 3 others, including, of course, Alabama and LSU, the one that CBS was really excited about. They're going to try to get that game back, I guarantee, if none of the others. I don't know if anybody's going to be clamoring for Mississippi State and Auburn. So this has really put a damper. I'll tell you, for me, the realization really hit last Saturday. And you know me, I'm a college football junkie. I'm sitting around watching college football all day on Saturdays. And it happened to be my grandma's 85th birthday, and some family members, my sister and my parents and I, we took my grandma to Weston, Missouri, this little, cute town in north of Kansas City. And there's all these shops and there's restaurants. It's just cute. Somewhere that you would never catch me, by the way, on a college football Saturday. Yet I was there and I didn't find myself caring that I was there. I had fun despite the fact that I was missing some key college football action because, Noah, to me, it just doesn't feel real right now.
No, it doesn't feel real. It definitely doesn't feel the same. And I am at home watching all the games, but man, I am just sometimes questioning why I'm doing it. Why am I not outside? I go do something, but it's just so ingrained in me that I feel like there's just this force field around me where I can't leave. I can't get away from the TV. I need to find a way. I need something to break me free of this house and get out on a college football Saturday like you did. I may need someone's birthday and them just dragging me, kicking and screaming. And then once I get out, I'll realize that I'm having a much better time than trying to find some Boston College game to watch on a college football Saturday because every other game's canceled.
And I think that there's going to be further problems if you have games canceled due to contact tracing and things of that nature. What's that going to mean for next week? Missouri plays South Carolina. Tennessee plays Auburn. What's going to happen with the rest of these games? And I mean, for new coaches like Eli Drinkwitz at Mizzou, it's just been really difficult. Well, there's nothing that goes better with football than beer, and we're excited to have Golden Road Brewing as one of our newest sponsors for the show. Founded in 2011, Golden Road is Los Angeles' largest craft brewery with brew pub locations across California.
Golden Road is excited to celebrate the Kansas City Chiefs with its partnership beer, Kingdom Blonde Ale. Kingdom Blonde is available at local retailers and in the Chiefs Stadium during regular seasons.
Golden Road's year-round offerings include Mango Cart Wheat Ale, Wolf Pup IPA, and Fruit Cart Hard Seltzer. Golden Road brewers are constantly experimenting with the freshest ingredients to keep fans' taste buds happy with a collection of rotating seasonals, creative flavors, and classic craft brews.
Pick up a case of Golden Road beer at your local store to enjoy before the next game. Visit goldenroad.la/beerfinder to buy Golden Road beer now.
Well, we're going to move on from college football and talk some NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs are 8-1 at the bye week. And as we look around, is it just me? I mean, think about this. A year ago to today, and I just looked and saw a year ago today, we made the proclamation. We called the Chiefs team trash. They were 6-4. They had just lost to the Tennessee Titans, and it looked like they were going nowhere last season with all the injuries and the problems they had. All they did from then, Noah, was win, 17 of their next 18, a Super Bowl, and now they're 8-1 this season. So looking at the bye week, the midway point, kind of we're a game past the midway point, but are the Chiefs where you thought they would be kind of at this point? We're going to ask this to Jeffri Chadiha here coming up, but where are the Chiefs at versus where your expectations were? And with getting Mitchell Schwartz back, with getting Sammy Watkins back, the Chiefs injury situation is pretty good right now. This team seems loaded for bear for the stretch run, yes?
Yeah, I mean, are they where I thought they would be at this moment? Part of me says yes, part of me says no. I did feel that they would be 8-1. I thought that loss would be to the Ravens, not the Raiders, so that's the no part of that. But yeah, I thought that they'd be 8-1. I did think the defense would be more impressive and kind of carry over from last season. And it's somewhere in between where they started last year and where they finished last year. They're kind of in that middle area, that gray area, because I'm not really sure what's going on with Frank Clark. I know he's got a lingering knee issue, but it's kind of been all season. We haven't seen him just jump off the screen and be that $100+ million player that we paid and traded for. So that's kind of a question for me right now. Are we going to see maybe after the bye week he gets a little healthier, gets some things, gets his knee calmed down, and then can really come on and give us that consistent pass rush that we paid him for? Daniel Sorensen and Ben Neiman are on the field too much still. Hopefully our rookies, Willie Gay Jr. and L'Jarius Sneed, who will be coming back from a collarbone injury pretty soon here. Hopefully they can maybe take some snaps away from those two. They're not going to get them off the field completely, but at least take some snaps from them. And hopefully Travarius Ward, who's been on Twitter himself saying that he's in a slump, can figure that out. We've got some offensive line issues. Like you said, maybe Mitchell Schwartz will come back and help that a little bit. Sammy Watkins coming back will help. So I think this team is ready for a nice stretch run. We've got the Saints. We've got the Bucks coming up. Those are going to be two key games. Again, of course, the Raiders who beat us. So we're going to have some revenge on our minds and get that taste out of our mouths, that bad taste from them beating us. So I think we are ready for a stretch run. I think this defense gets it figured out. I think the rookies start getting more playing time and getting healthy in the case of L'Jarius Sneed, and then we're right back there leading the race for the Super Bowl.
Maybe you can help me figure this out. Maybe you can get inside my head and psychologically, diagnose exactly what's going on with me. But we've talked a lot about how I've been so ingrained in the NFL, and I think the NFL's done a great job. And sure, we've seen teams, miss games due to COVID. We've had the Chiefs playing on happy hour on Mondays due to COVID. But the NFL, the on-field action has been so good, and I'm so into it. And the colleges have more fans in the stands. There's more atmosphere in the stadiums, yet it just hasn't felt real. We've talked about that. But yet in the NFL, I find myself really intrigued by things like the rookie quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa, Joe Burrow. I find myself watching those guys play, kind of sizing up the future for them. I'm even find myself intrigued with division races, not necessarily the NFC East, but I'm watching these games and I have a rooting interest. I feel like I'm watching, the Raiders play and having an interest in that and, looking for the Chiefs to create more separation. And you've got a last second play where the Chargers win the game and then they don't. And you're seeing Justin Herbert grow up. We talked about that. Tua Tagovailoa comes out and wins a big game against the Arizona Cardinals. I am just so impressed by what the NFL has done this year and how much it has kept my attention with all that's going on. Is it just me? I mean, get inside my head and help me figure this out. Or are the reasons I'm giving, is that enough? Does that make any sense at all?
Oh, it definitely does. I mean, the NFL, you've got really a level playing field. You look at the NFC, you can't really pick out who stands out the most? Who's going to go to the Super Bowl? You've got the Seahawks, you've got the Packers. A lot of people still like the Cardinals. They still like the Rams. You've got the Saints and the Bucks. I mean, there's some teams out here. The Bears have a good record. Not a lot of people believe in them as a team that's going to compete for a Super Bowl, but they have a good record. They're going to be right there. They're going to be in the playoffs. And the AFC, you've got the Steelers on the rise again. The Ravens are still there. Now it's the Bills. The Dolphins are looking impressive, whether it was with Ryan Fitzpatrick, now Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, you've got the Raiders right there. They beat the Chiefs. So you've got a lot of interesting storylines. The Titans are still there, maybe not as impressive. They've lost a few games here. But you've got the Colts with Phillip Rivers, who gave the Ravens all they could handle there for a little bit until the wheels fell off, as it often does with a Phillip Rivers-led team. And you go to the college side, what big quarterbacks are out there? You've got Trevor Lawrence, you got Justin Fields. Yeah, you got Trey Lance, but he's at North Dakota State. They're not going to fight for a national championship. So at least out of Division I
they might.
championship. Yes. But you look at the playoffs, I mean, you've got Ohio State, you've got Alabama, and you've got Clemson. I mean, Georgia and Florida, they don't look like they're going to be top-notch as far as coming up and taking out Alabama in the SEC championship game. Florida just beat Georgia, so it looks like it'll be Florida. You don't think they're going to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game. And the Big 12, they've got losses all over the place. Nobody looks to stand out there. Oklahoma's making a little push, but they've already got 2 losses, so what are they going to do? The Pac-12 is a mess, as they always are. So there's just not enough great quarterbacks and enough great teams vying for that national champion to keep your attention, and just all these cancellations, the COVID stuff going on in college football that's just rampant right now. Early in the season, they look like they might have it under control, but now it's just the California wildfires that's just spreading across college football, and we're not sure what's going to happen. Are we going to be able to complete all these games? Probably not.
Man, you so eloquently summed up my exact thoughts. Thanks for doing that. And I'll tell you what, on the other side, you don't have to take our word for it, because we're going to be joined by NFL.com's Jeffri Chadiha right here on the Elite Sports Podcast. Guys, we have so much still to come here on the Elite Sports Podcast, but we want to take this time to tell you about our new sponsor, 500 Level. 500 Level is the ultimate sports apparel and fan gear store, and they feature ultra-comfortable custom t-shirts for NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and even WWE. I just got a Macho Man Randy Savage shirt from 500 Level that has been a conversation starter everywhere I go. 500 Level was created because they decided it was time to create an apparel company that put the fans right in the mix, instead of having to outfit themselves with the same old gear from major corporations. 500level.com works with exceptionally talented artists, designers, and diehard sports fans to create unique t-shirt designs for fans to wear with pride. I mean, here in Kansas City, it's time to defend that Lombardi trophy. So stock up in 500 Level's unbelievable inventory of never-before-seen designs for players like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, or even rookie Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You literally can't find that anywhere else. Use promo code KansasCity20 today for 20% off your order at 500level.com. That's promo code KansasCity20 for 20% off only at 500level.com. It's actually been a year since we've had you on, and I just looked it up. The last time we had you on, we were talking about the 6-4 Chiefs that just lost to the Tennessee Titans. Noah and I were calling them hashtag Team Trash after the effort. All they've done since then is won 17 out of 18 and a Super Bowl. So you're talking to 2 idiots here, Jeffri, and so just don't hold that against us.
All right. Well, it worked out, didn't it?
It did, and we're here at the bye week at 8-1. It's really strange, kind of watching this team this year, Jeffri, as you look around, and the team's 8-1. I think they're plus 243 points in the last year, plus 243 and versus opponents, which is insane. And 8-1 on the year. That loss to the Chargers was the blip in the road. But as you kind of assess things, as you look at this team, should get Mitchell Schwartz back, should get Sammy Watkins back for the remaining 7 games. Is this kind of about where you saw the Chiefs? And where do you, when you look at them right now, how do you kind of assess where they are? Obviously, the Pittsburgh Steelers are undefeated. Does it kind of come down to Chiefs and Steelers? Is that the collision course we're on?
I think it is. I mean, but I think there's other players that are going to probably step up at some point in the second half of the season. I mean, to answer your first question, yeah, I think they're about where I figured they would be, probably about, 8-1, 7-2 around this point. Everybody's going to have injuries. I think that should have been the expectation going into this season. And they've done pretty well. I mean, they haven't, aside from losing Kelechi Osemele, and I think one other guy was lost for the year. I forget who it was, but nobody of significance. They've been able to avoid the kind of things that have affected the 49ers, for example, the team they played in the Super Bowl, who's lost, of key players, key starters. So I think they're in good shape there. I think that what's been really encouraging about the way they've played is they've been able to find balance. And you go back to a couple of years ago when they were just starting to make their way, they were really all about the offense and throwing the football around and trying to outscore people. And now they've got a running game that they can rely upon. They've got a defense they can rely upon. They've won games with special teams play, the Harrison Butker, that Chargers game, making some pivotal kicks. So I think they're in pretty good shape.
Well, Jeff, let's talk a little bit about this MVP race because it looks like Mahomes is leading it right now. Josh Allen can't decide whether he's in or out. Tom Brady and Russell Wilson are downtrending after these last couple performances by them. So where do you see this MVP race going?
Oh, I still think Russell Wilson is in the lead. It's funny,
Really?
I had a conversation on the radio about this. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think here's the argument that Russell Wilson has had going for him since day one. He's got a horrible defense, the worst defense they've ever had there, and probably the worst defense in the NFL right now. They've lost like 3 or 4 running backs. They're down to playing guys they sign off the streets or from their practice squad. He really only has 2 receivers. He's having they lead the league in scoring. I think that he leads the league in touchdown passes. Yep. He has had 2 or 3 comeback wins, and he's in the best division in football. I mean, literally, if you're talking about a guy who's carrying a team, to a 6-2 record. I don't know where. I'll say this: the Chiefs were able to win a game last year with Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. I don't know if the Seattle Seahawks can win a game this year without Russell Wilson playing quarterback. That's why he's my MVP.
That's fair. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you about another team in the Chiefs division. The Las Vegas Raiders are 5-3 here, kind of playing some really good complementary football. That offense is really a force to be reckoned with right now. Just seeing what John Gruden and Mike Mayock have been able to do building this roster. They were able to beat the Chiefs, kind of get that monkey off their back. The Chiefs are 8-1. The Raiders are 5-3. The two are going to meet in a couple of weeks. Are the Raiders in this thing? They've proven that they're a real team, but where are we at with them? There's going to be probably 8 playoff teams, so we think they're probably at least going to get in there because half the conference is. So,
yeah, I think they're very much in it. I think if you watch them play the Chiefs the first time around, I think they legitimize themselves as a serious playoff contender. I mean, I think that team could win 10 games pretty easily based on how they played. If that's the way they can play at their best, and they're able to stay consistent in that and avoid injuries, I think they've got a lot of good things going for them. And in fact, I think, I was watching ESPN, their morning show Get Up the other day, and they were talking about who's the biggest threat to the Chiefs, and one guy picked the Raiders because they've beaten them before. And I kind of agree with that. I think the Steelers are a really good team, and based on record, they've got the best. They're the best team right now because they haven't lost a game. But I think once they lose a game, I think the Chiefs will be considered the best team. But I think the Raiders, with what they have on offense, even though they're not great on defense, they can challenge the Chiefs, because to beat the Chiefs, you have to be able to score points. You have to be able to slow them down. So you have to be able to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field. And with what they have in offense with Henry Ruggs and Josh Jacobs and Darren Waller and Nelson Aguilar's played good football for them. They've got some weapons and a good offensive line. So I think that they're very much a real team.
No, that's a good point. I mean, they've got the deep weapons, and they've got Waller intermediate, and then they can pound and ground you on the with Josh Jacobs and control the ball and keep the Chiefs on the sideline. So that's a good point. But Jeff, we are all used to being forced into talking Patriots, but now that Tom Brady's in Tampa Bay, it seems like it's required by NFL podcasting law that we talk Bucks. So you recently wrote an article for NFL.com saying the Bucks were the favorite in the NFC after they escaped with a victory against the Giants Monday night. Now Bruce Arians is calling out Tom and the media after losses, especially this recent Sunday night massacre at the hand of the Saints. So what do you make of what's going on down in Tampa?
I think Tampa is a work in progress. And I think the point I was making in that article was that they're the best team in a flawed conference, that they're really hard to find any team to fall in love with. Now, New Orleans is making a move. I think the way they played against the Bucks. They really made a statement about where they're at. Their defense is coming around. Getting Michael Thomas back on the field is a big lift to them. They're getting healthy at the right time. I think the Bucks on paper have everything you want in a championship caliber team. Can they make it all work? A lot of ways they're a lot like the LA Clippers in the NBA, where they've added so many different pieces, and they basically added 3 or 4 different key pieces within the last 2-3 months. Whether it was Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, Gronkowski came back from retirement. He wasn't doing a whole bunch in the off season, so he had to get going and get work. So there's sometimes you can have too many weapons, and I think that's what they feel like to me. A team that's trying to figure out, who needs to get the ball, when they have to get the ball, and it's just they're having a hard time distributing the football and playing to their strengths. In fact, you look at the teams that have beaten them, it's not surprising that their 3 losses have come against teams that have pretty good defenses. Because I think when you've got good defenses, you can take away some of the things they do well.
Jeffrey, I kind of want to go a little broader with you on this next one because, I'm equally an NFL and college football junkie, but man, this year has been so different. I feel like the on-field action, the National Football League has done just such a great job. Of course, we've seen games moved around. We've seen the Titans go on the shelf for a couple of weeks, but overall things are moving. The games are exciting, even without a lot of fans in the stands and things like that. Whereas college football is really struggling. You've got the Big Ten that just started, and maybe more on that in a little bit. Maybe talk some Michigan with you, but college football, 4 of the 7 SEC games are canceled for this weekend, or they're trying to push games back. The Pac-12, before they could even get a game in, I think Cal and Stanford had a game canceled. It just doesn't feel right. The scales are tipping. I'm really all in on the NFL this year, whereas college, it just doesn't really feel real. What are your thoughts kind of on how the football season's gone in general so far?
Well, if you go back to the summer when there was always talk about what's college football going to do, how's it going to work, and people were giving the Big Ten all kinds of crap about bowing out, and the Pac-12 all kinds of shit about bowing out. And it's like, I think they felt like, okay, we're trying to work with the SEC here, the ACC, the Big 12. And these conferences clearly have a whole different picture about how they want to operate. And so in my mind, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have always been about player safety, and they should get credit for that. And so they went into this knowing it's going to be hard to make this work, but if we're going to try to make it work, we're going to try to be very conservative in what we do, whereas the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 have gone out and said we're going to go, balls to the wall and make it work and fit games in. And ultimately, this is the byproduct of not having any collaboration. People not communicating, deciding let's have like some basic ground rules about how we're going to do things. And what the NFL and the pro sports leagues have benefited from is just that's been a requirement. They've had these leagues and the players have had to sit down and talk about how they're going to do things and what the protocols are going to be and how everybody's going to operate. There's going to be a certain type of punishment for people who don't do the right thing, and it's helped them. And so that, to me, is what you're seeing with college football now. It's just it should have been expected from day one, because anybody who thought these kids were going to go to college and have the lay of the land and not be out there hanging out and partying and chasing girls and getting COVID was kidding themselves. Whereas in professional sport, that's what kids do, right? I mean, if I was on college, I'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But in professional sports, it's a job, and there's a price to be paid if you're not doing your job correctly. And I think that's helped the NFL and every other pro sports league.
Yeah, and staying with that topic on the NFL side, with COVID comes flexibility and fluidity this year, as now we can potentially have 16 playoff teams if games start to get canceled down the stretch. And with that said, is this the year the NFL just has to put their foot down and disallow the NFC least from participating in the postseason?
Well, I do think what's interesting about that playoff plan that was offered up as a contingency, which I think they'll probably have to go to it at some point, the way the numbers are going, that you're probably going to start seeing games getting canceled. If they end up going to 8 teams and they're seeding teams, that's one way to mitigate what you're talking about here. I mean, unfortunately, those teams in the NFC East have been a disaster. And some of that, like I kind of feel like if Dallas hadn't lost Dak Prescott, they would have found a way to be a 9-7 team because there's just so much talent there. But I actually like the idea of opening it up and adding in other playoff teams. I think baseball, to me, became really interesting this season by doing that and having 16 playoff teams, because there were teams I've never really watched, like the Marlins or the Padres, who were in there and made runs. And it's just, I think you're going to end up having, not every team plays 16 games, and you're going to end up having, some kind of unbalanced situation. And I think the best way to mitigate that is just saying, hey, let's just have an open field. Nobody gets a bye. Everybody's playing 3 playoff games to get to the Super Bowl, and we'll see what happens.
I don't know. In your scenario there, someone out there could be enjoying the Browns upsetting the Chiefs in the first round of the playoffs, and that scares me a little bit. But no, yeah, absolutely could be the case. Jeffrey, as we look down the pike here, obviously it looks like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields are going to be heading to the AFC as the way things are shaking out. And I mean, it just seems like the AFC has tended to harvest the top quarterback prospects here for the last few years. I mean, is it as clear, cut, and simple as this? Or are the Jets ready to let go of Sam Darnold? And does Sam Darnold have a shelf life beyond his first couple years in disastrous New York?
Well, I think I'll answer the second question first. If you look at Ryan Tannehill, yeah, I would say Sam Darnold's probably got the second chance somewhere to get his career turned around. I mean, he hasn't had the best weapons there or the best coaching, and that can be tough on a young quarterback. But yeah, I think if he got into a better situation with better talent around him, you might see a better Sam Darnold. And yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, the AFC has certainly been getting some of the better young prospects, but I think they've also been in a position where most of their older quarterbacks have cycled out faster. The NFC, you still got, obviously Tom Brady went to the NFC, but, the Drew Breeses, Russell Wilson's been making his name for a while. Aaron Rodgers, people like that have been around for a while. But I do think what's happening with college football and pro football when it comes to the quarterback position, and this kind of goes back to the whole thing with Mahomes and the MVP race, is that it's so much easier to play quarterback in the NFL nowadays. Mm-hmm. And so what you're seeing now is teams are saying, look, if we have to get rid of a guy that we drafted, it's not going to cost us that much. Let's get somebody else in, see how fast he can matriculate and get up to speed. And if he can't do it, we'll go to somebody else. I mean, so you saw what happened with the Cardinals giving up on Josh Rosen, and now they've got a kid in Kyler Murray who looks like he could be an MVP candidate at some point. I've heard even people talking about Miami playing Tua Tagovailoa now because they want to see what they have. And if he's not up to snuff, maybe they do try to make a move and get a Trevor Lawrence, because they're going to have the Texans pick, which might end up being a top 2 or 3 pick. And so what's happening now is, and why it affects someone like Mahomes in the MVP race, is that the numbers get so skewed. And so when you have somebody who's got 25 touchdown passes and 1 interception, it doesn't look as good as it did 10 years ago, because now you've got 10 guys who probably have 20 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions or 3 interceptions. I mean, even the year Mahomes won the MVP, he was 50-12, but Drew Brees was 32-5. Mm-hmm. And so the point I'm making, larger point I'm making, is that I just think it's so much easier to play quarterback now. And a lot of these teams are saying, hey, look, let's go get a guy and get him up and running, and let's coach him up, coach to his strengths, and hopefully we can get 10 good years out of him.
Well, Jeffrey, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. Before we get you out of here, we got to go to our first and goal segment, which is 4 quick questions. We got to try to get to the end zone. We'll go home on this one, brought to you by 500 Level. Jeffrey, first question, where is Jim Harbaugh coaching next year? Actually, let me rephrase that. Which NFL franchise is Jim Harbaugh coaching at next year?
Well, you know what? I don't even know if he's going to have an NFL job the way things are going right now. The way he's coaching. But he's got 1 year left at Michigan. After this year, I think he'll still be at Michigan. But my gut tells me he won't be there beyond Michigan. He'll be back in the NFL after that point, probably with a team that is, he'll find a job somewhere, but it won't be with the same kind of luster that he brought to Michigan or San Francisco before that.
Yeah, absolutely. And second to goal here, just out of Joe Burrow, Tua, and Justin Herbert over the next 10 years, if you had to pick one, which one were you going with?
I'm going Justin Herbert. I think that his success this year. He'll probably end up being the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Makes the Chargers, changes the whole dynamic around the Chargers, because now they're able to hold on to some pretty good players that they've had. They're able to go out and invest and find some more weapons to put around. They've got a pretty good roster. I mean, as much as they screw things up and, blow leads and close games, like, they've got a lot of talent. If the quarterback can play, that puts them in a situation where now they can go out and really try to build up that roster and try to chase the Chiefs and compete with the Chiefs. So I think he's in the best situation right now.
Okay, I'm going out on a limb on question 3 here. I'm assuming that you've been live in some NFL stadiums this year that have had some people in the crowd. What is the loudest stadium you've been in so far in 2020?
That'd be Arrowhead, because that's the only stadium I've been in that actually has fans in it. So by default, they're the ones that went out. Yeah, every other stadium I've been to New Orleans and I've been to Houston, and both those games were 0 fans. So the Chiefs are running away with this one. Loudest stadium in the world right now.
Hey, bring back the Guinness Book of World Records. Let's redo that. Let's do it.
That's right. The decibel level of 16 is like that's the new record instead of 142.5.
Well, our last one here for you, Jeff. Again, we can't thank you enough. It's always an honor to have you on. We've seen 8 to 9 games out of these teams so far this season. Let's get your Super Bowl picks on record halfway through the COVID 2020 NFL season.
I'll take Chiefs and I'll take Saints. I think earlier I had Bucks Steelers, but I'll take Chiefs Saints right now.
We will write that down, and we will hold your feet to the fire on that, of course, as always. Jeffri Chadiha, NFL.com. We always love the work. Can't wait to see what's coming up next. So you got any big articles coming out? It's been like a week. We're ready for something new. What do you got working on over there?
Yeah. Well, it's been unfortunately I got some time off with the bye week, and I actually have been working on a story about quarterbacks and just what's the biggest quality or the most important quality you should look for when you're looking for a quarterback, and just looking at the guys like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, some of the more notable people. Mahomes has gone through this. I think mental toughness, but it's having a guy who's gone through something at some point in his life that allows him to deal with adversity and handle success. I think that's, if you look at some of the elite guys and the top tier guys in the NFL right now, like they've all kind of gone through something in their lives that's helped them get to where they are today. So that's what I'm working on.
Oh, that sounds great.
That, or if they played shortstop at some time growing up. So that seems to be a key with all these guys.
That's right.
Just connecting some dots there. Yeah. Jeffri Chadiha, NFL.com. Thank you so much, my friend. Let's not wait a year this next time. We'll do it again soon, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Sorry about being late.
Hey, no problem at all, my friend. Thank you. A year later, and Jeffri Chadiha, our good friend from NFL.com, joins us, and we go around the NFL, and we bring that to you here on the Elite Sports Podcast. That is what we do. It's great to have our friend Jeffri Chadiha on the show, and, you heard a Super Bowl pick. He's got Chiefs and Saints. I don't think anybody would complain about that. That's what it should have been in 2018. Maybe we finally get that. Circle the wagons and get that here in 2020, man.
Absolutely, but I am going to have to disagree with him that Russell Wilson is leading the MVP race right now. He has thrown a lot of interceptions. He's not looked impressive. That loss against the Bills was ugly. I know he has the worst defense out there. I know he's carrying the team when they do win, but I'm not sure if they can even get to 12 wins. So if they're not going to have one of the best records in the league, and Russell Wilson is going to have just way more interceptions than Patrick Mahomes, who has one right now at the end of the year, and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to have a better record, can you give it to Russell Wilson? I'm not sure. I know that he's been this great quarterback ever since he stepped foot in this league, and he hasn't won an MVP, so there's going to be that kind of, we need to give it to him. He's earned it over this time. He needs it, but I just don't think he's going to have the numbers, and his team's not going to have the record that's going to say outright he deserves it over a Patrick Mahomes.
We learned in 2018 this is not a Lifetime Achievement Award, as the NFL and many people wanted to give that to Drew Brees back in 2018, even though Patrick Mahomes had the 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. I think Drew Brees had 32 touchdowns that year. It was a phenomenal year, but I think that when it comes to this award, it seems to, like the Heisman, it just, you can fit where the glass needs to fit. You can fit the glass slipper where you need to, right? So maybe it's the best player on the best team. maybe it's the best player on the worst team that's carrying the team on his shoulders. That's what Jeffri Chadiha was alluding to.
Yeah.
And the Seattle Seahawks are not the worst, of course. Don't get me wrong. They're 6-2, and they're a good team thanks to Russell Wilson and that offense, DK Metcalf and Aaron Lockett, and some of the things that they're able to do. We will not take anything away from Russell Wilson's ability to throw the deep ball. He throws the best deep ball maybe in NFL history. But this begs this question, and I think that when you look at it and you look at the stats, Jeffri Chadiha just said it, though. It's hard to compare quarterbacks from previous eras to quarterbacks today. It really is, because I looked at the stat. Patrick Mahomes, the quickest player ever to get to 100 touchdown passes. It took him 40 games to do it. And you want to look at the interceptions thrown. When they get to 100, Patrick Mahomes has 19. John Elway had 95. But, man, it's a different game. I don't want to disparage John Elway there. I think what Mahomes is doing is incredible. Kind of a two-parter here. Is Patrick Mahomes having the greatest start to a career in NFL history? And is he on a collision course to being one of the 2 or 3 greats of all time? And is it also at the same time unfair to make those comparisons, because this game is just so different? You can't watch a game without a 3rd and 15 being converted due to a illegal contact penalty. The rules all favor the offense. You can't mug the receivers down the field. Quarterbacks get touched and it's a penalty. I mean, is it just unfair?
It is unfair, but I think Mahomes is like the exception to the rule. I think he is having the best start in NFL history. I think he is going to be one of the 2, 3, maybe the best. That's going to be hard to beat. Tom Brady's going to have to put up lots of Super Bowls and the numbers. We're pretty sure he's going to put up the numbers. Can he get to 5, 6, 7 Super Bowls to make it a competition, to make it an argument with Tom Brady and the Joe Montanas of the world? Is that going to be something that Patrick Mahomes can do? We're going to have to wait and see. This year's going to go a lot to that. The Chiefs look like a dominant team out here. Patrick Mahomes is going to have to fight through the playoffs again and get another Super Bowl if he wants to go down as maybe the best in that argument as the GOAT. But I think for a lot, you see, I just saw this past weekend, I think it was Monday night, the Jets played the Patriots. Joe Flacco passed Joe Montana in yards. I mean, so that's what you're seeing. This is just a completely different game. You mentioned Patrick Mahomes had 19 interceptions so far through this many games. John Elway had 95. It's a completely different game. The game skewed towards the offense. A lot of this yardage, you're looking at Phillip Rivers and I mean, Joe Flacco passing Joe Montana on any list, on any whatever it is, the yards, touchdowns, whatever it may be. It's just asinine. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. So, I mean, the Dan Marinos still hold up to me, and the John Elways, and of course Joe Montana and Troy Aikman. I know everyone's crushing Troy Aikman. Oh, Patrick Mahomes is passing this, and like I said, Patrick Mahomes is the exception to the rule, because of course he is. But I mean, any of these quarterbacks coming up, Deshaun Watson's passing him now, and like we mentioned, Phillip Rivers. I don't know if Drew Brees is better than Dan Marino. I know he's got all these numbers, all the stats in his favor, the most touchdown passes in NFL history. But to my eye, I don't know if I can say in a different era, a different game, that Drew Brees is better than Dan Marino.
Yeah, and I think that's just something that, much like Michael Jordan or LeBron James, that is just going to be a topic of conversation that pops up kind of on down the road, as a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of teams have their quarterbacks, and it's going to be interesting to see, because it almost looks like if you draft one, if you build it, they will come. You draft one, they're going to put up numbers for you. That's what we're seeing, and we'll see how that bears out. And it looks like Jeffri Chadiha is all about Joe Burrow going forward, and I agree. I love Joe. 60 touchdowns last season for the LSU Tigers, a Heisman and national championship. We covered the LSU Tigers all last year, and what a pleasure it was to do so. So going to be interesting to see. Enjoy the Chiefs bye week. I'm excited to catch up and just sit down and watch a lot of NFL action. Guess no college games for me this week once again, because there's none on. I guess maybe, what will I watch? Nebraska, Penn State. Might just do that just for the, for craps and giggles, I guess. Can we say that?
Well, every second I turn on my TV, there's either Virginia or Virginia Tech or Boston College playing. So if you're a fan of one of those teams, man, you are in for a great weekend.
I think I'm out once again. Hey, guys, if you like what we're doing, our website is gasnsports.com. That's where everything that we do, all of our articles, interviews, podcasts, are all archived right there on GASN Sports, the Great American Sports Network. Hit us up on our social medias. Just search GASN Sports. And as always, the Elite Sports Podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify. So subscribe, leave us a star rating, and it helps us continue doing what we do. We always appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Elite. Thanks to our guest, Jeffri Chadiha, and thanks to our sponsors, 500 Level and Golden Road Brewing.